Bare necessities, simple bare necessities, simple bare necessities of life. Da da dum dum dum. Another successful landing. Crowd goes wild. If you're wondering if that's a gigantic blue alligator hide, the answer is yes, it is. You can be like, what's that in your background? That brown thing back there is a roll of leather. Me and my father are going to be heading to Fort Myers as soon as the power and the water goes back on. Heard from the neighbors. There's no water pressure and there's no power. She sent me several videos. Pictures will go through on the internet. Pictures will go through and voicemail will go through, but not videos. Probably because the digital side of cellular has gone down. I've heard about that. There's two different. Anyway, it's a disaster down there. I appreciate to anybody that's been helpful, made a donation and whatnot in the past few days on that. And I dread to go down there, but I'm extremely appreciative to anybody and everybody. But my dad is older than me, obviously. It'll be bad enough without power, especially when it's going to be 85 to 88 degrees down there. After working a really hard day, you cannot have both no power and no water pressure, where you can't take a frigging shower and wash the muck and grime off of you. That's a bridge too far. And I hear that there's no hotel rooms. And the hotel rooms, most of them aren't being rented out because they have no power either. So there you go with that. Just a little update on Fort Myers, and it's a complete and total disaster down there. Fort Myers Beach, which is not Fort Myers, by the way. They're very, very close. Fort Myers Beach is technically an island. It has been wiped off the face of the earth. I mean, not like damaged or destroyed. Destroyed would be like a bunch of sticks all mangled, like, it's destroyed. Wiped off the face of the earth means look like somebody just went like that, like the hand of God just went shoop, totally removed it from the globe. And it's been wiped from the face. It doesn't exist anymore. The place still exists, but nothing there exists anymore. I'm going to keep things simple, and simplicity is divinity. And there's a passage from the Udana, I've been translating ancient Pali. It's one of the most ancient parts of the Nikayas, of the Digha Nikaya, Majjhima, Samyutta, and Gautara Nikaya, and Kuldaka Nikaya. I'm not discussing any religion here, by the way, just a passage that tells the truth of things, to get to that in a second. People say, well, there's too much to know in the universe, and the universe is infinite, and the universe is infinite. However, there's a flow of things. You don't have to know, if you're a master captain, for example, you don't have to know every nook and every cranny. It's very helpful to know, like, just down here there's going to be a turn, and then there's like a sand barge that's in the way, we can't get beach there. It's very important to know those details, but if you're a master captain, it means you know the nature of water and you know how to sail. The same is true of metaphysics when people talk about the infinite universe. There's a reason. I've known a lot of people that are extremely intelligent, yet quite crazy. They have no wisdom. They might even be in an insane asylum, some of them. There's one guy watches my video that is in an insane asylum. He sends me emails. I feel for the poor guy. Up in Canada, and the universe is infinite, and there are infinite number of details, and then people are interested in all these empirical facts. And there's only so many, it doesn't matter how sharp you are, how intelligent you are. There's a huge difference between IQ and episteme, empirical facts, and wisdom. Wisdom, by the way, is just a fancy word created by silly human beings to refer to self-proximity. Just as ice is a stupid word, they say, well, ice, you immediately think, well, it's cold water. Yeah, of course, we have this unique word, ice. We have this unique word, wisdom, but what wisdom means is just a silly word like ice. It means self-proximity. The self that seeks itself, and the self that seeks itself is on the path of wisdom. The fulfillment of wisdom is complete self-proximity. What's the opposite of dilution? I'm pausing. I'll let you fill in that word. What's the opposite of dilution? People say, concentration is the opposite of dilution. Well, denotatively, the word concentration is the opposite of dilution. But when people think of concentration, say, I'm going to do some meditation. I hate that word because it doesn't refer to anything specifically, and they'll sit there, maybe in the lotus position, and they'll concentrate on their breath, which is completely ridiculous. The ancient passages do not talk about breath concentration. They actually talk about the animating principle, the pneumatic principle, i.e. the spirit, the sanctum of the psychophysical body, that which animates it, i.e. the signal, as far as the radio. Radio is just this lumpless piece of garbage. There ain't no signal in the radio, ain't no soul in the body, but we're talking about concentrating on, not objectively, because the subject is never an object to be known, but it's through retroduction, this anamnesis, that things are to be known. Anyway, we don't have to know all the absolute nook and cranny. Nobody can know even half about this world as far as empirical facts, much less the infinite universe and all its countless worlds and countless millions and billions of species out there. The nature's open secret on the infinite is really simple. Of course, perfect example, the hurricane Ian that came through and destroyed Fort Myers Beach and destroyed Fort Myers and partially wrecked up my house, which I'm going to go down there with my dad as soon as possible. We have all these strong moving winds that are revolving around nothing. I've been in the eye of a hurricane before at Daytona Beach. It is extremely beautiful, extremely calm, and is extremely peaceful. Nothing's going on. It is extremely idyllic. And yet, of course, the eye moves, and you hit the eye wall again, and then you hit these and people never think about this. Walter Russell had all these diagrams of hurricanes and tornadoes, and he actually made reference to his idea was north, south, east, west. What he's actually talking about is centrifugal and centripetal. Instead of saying centrifugal and centripetal, when he was referring to centrifugal force divergence, he was referring to east-west. People don't get this. Why does this guy keep talking about east, west, and north, south? He's talking about north, south, i.e. the axis. He's talking about centripetal convergence. He's talking about east, west. He's actually talking about centrifugal divergence. Anyway, this is a little passage from a diagram that I don't think is in any of Walter Russell's works, which I digitized, by the way. This is one of the diagrams that has been hidden away, that a person secretly took pictures of, got a hold of them, and sent them to me a few years ago. This is genuinely Walter Russell, by the way. This is from 1953. It said, the atom is held together solely by fast motion around a point of rest, which is known as a center of gravity. Nothing else than that. There are no nuclear particles at atom centers. This is actually not the rejection of protons and neutrons. All neutrons become protons when they're outside of the atom. Therefore, a neutron is a proton modality. What he's saying is that, of course, these nuclear particles are just little tornadoes or little hurricanes around which, the center of which, there is nothing. In fact, they are holes. These are his words. These are holes like the eye in a cyclone in every atom. These 0, 1, 2, 3 groups. You know, something they never taught us back in science school. They taught us about the periodic chart. We learned about, oxygen, nitrogen, uranium, all the elements, periodic table. Conventional Western periodic table. They never told us, hey, there was this neat guy, Walter Russell, had his own periodic table. It followed a curve like that, where all atoms followed a natural harmonic. And Walter Russell actually discovered, I think it was 6 elements before they were actually physically discovered. He said, right here at this harmonic, we'll discover another element that has these properties because it sits at this harmonic on the table. Just type in Walter Russell periodic table, and of course he was 100% right. So he's actually quite a brilliant man, and we were never taught any of this stuff in school. Anyway, getting back to the point, like being in the eye of a hurricane, which I have been. I don't recommend anybody doing it because you're going to have to pass through the outer wall of a hurricane again. At the center of magnetism, for example, there is no magnetism. The most powerful magnet, whatever it be, whether neodymium, electromagnet, there is no magnetism at the center of flux. We experience everything in this universe through empty holes in our bodies, our eyes, nose, mouth, very other orifices through which birth occurs and procreation occurs, so on and so forth. Really the least intelligent people on this earth. You could disagree with me if you like. And most people don't know the definition of this. Atheos. Philipus 29d was the first occurrence of atheism. The least intelligent are these, and I'm not talking about the God or the rejection of God, which true denotation in the ancient Greek of atheos is not about. It's called atheos, by the way, not adios. The rejection of theurgic principles that underlie the substrate of phenomena. In other words, there's this donut, but the whole is, what's the cyclone and the hurricane revolving around this null point? The most powerful magnetic field is occurring around this nothing. There's no magnetic flux. We think we go to the center of something, we have the highest concentration of same. In the case of fields, anything that actually has any spatial volume, there is nothing at all. Kind of telling, isn't it? The same is true of light. A coaxial cable, whether it be circular or linear polarization, these rebounding electrical magnetic transverse components are rebounding against nothing. There are rarefactions and compressions of the pulse dielectric where they actually rarefy. Then we have the expansion of the electrical magnetic, and of course electricity is a hybrid of dielectricity and magnetism. This is straight out of both Eric Dollard and Charles Proteus Steinmetz in Electrical Discharges, Waves, and Impulses, page 14. Anyway, getting to this passage in the Udana, which is extremely ancient archaic Pali, which I've been translating over for 20 years. It was asked of Gautama about knowing, does he know all things? You know, does he know how many pebbles of sand are there on, an XYZ planet as implied in the ancient Pali? And the answer is, of course, no. The universe is infinite, said of Gautama, and this is logically necessitatively the case. He only knows the flow and nature of things and the escape from these phenomena, these things, i.e. the psychophysical, rupa, vedana, sana, sankara, the escape. So you only need to know the flow. It's the same true of any master, what do they call it, master captain. There's a different name than master captain. You're a master of boats, generally speaking, a master of water. Looking out at the water doesn't mean you know all waters. You haven't been to every water and inlet and river in the world. You don't have to know that, even though, of course, it's helpful. You only have to know the flow of everything. So these people that are so interested in, they fill their heads with facts. They're like Cliff Clavin from Cheers. He has all these useless facts in his head, but he's a literal calculator or a Google search engine. But he doesn't know the flow of anything. He doesn't know the way nature works. Anyway, these people are called metaphysical atheists. It's not about God or no God. It's actually about denying the substrate to phenomena. This, of course, is the null point or the rest point, i.e. ether or inertia. People don't get inertia. We have this connotation in our head of inertia of forward momentum. We have a certain inertia. If we're to take a turn or a curve or immediately stop, we have an inertia. The true inertia is the ether. It has no Cartesian value. Yeah? All fields are ether perturbation modalities. This is the disturbance of inertia. What is the disturbance of inertia resultant effect? The disturbance of inertia resultant effect, since all fields are ether perturbation modalities, just as every AC generator is in fact not an AC generator. They manifest power. They don't generate power. There's a disturbance of inertia, which is a loss of inertia. The loss of inertia manifests, of course, as magnetism. This, of course, is the three-dimensional S-curve, which manifests the toroid of force and motion. The conjugate geometry of the universe, of course, is the dielectric and the magnetic, both of which are the negative geometries of one another. The geometry of the dielectric is the hyperboloid, hourglass shape, and the negative image of a torus is a hyperboloid. Each is the negative of the one another, but they're both one and the same thing. It's like talking about light and illumination, water and ice, even though that's kind of a crude analogy. Nature is screaming at every man, woman, and child on this earth, but these people are deaf. They only seem to acknowledge, and it is the case, acknowledge phenomena, but they don't acknowledge this null or inertia around which a cyclone revolves, around which a tornado revolves, the empty holes through which all experience, sensation, procreation occurs. The empty hole, or the hole of the donut, if you will, in the case of the field of magnetism, at the center of which there is no magnetism. It's like, well, the center of everything should be the highest concentration of something. Not only is it not the highest concentration, there's a complete absence of this thing we call magnetic field, the center of a vector of magnetism. At the center of a vector of acceleration, which human beings call gravity, there is no gravity. There is none. If you're able to travel to the center of the earth in a magic super bubble, you'd be floating as if you were in deep space inside the same bubble. There is no gravitational flux at the center. People don't understand fields, so in the case of light, we're looking at a spherical wave particle. The fundamental particle, or the proton, as I said, is a spherical wave particle or ultra-high energy light, around which is nothing other than a microscopic cyclone or hurricane. Technically, they're ZTPs, or zero-time particles, but what they are is they're spherical wave particles, the fundamental particle of the entire universe. Everything is a compound of hydrogen, which makes things really simple. So getting to the point here, which of course I probably spent 15 minutes longer than I had to on getting to the point, is that we don't have to know, the answer to all the phenomena in the universe. We only have to know the flow of things. And by knowing the flow of things, we could determine a lot. You can actually, quite accurately, with a high statistical probability, predict the future. By knowing your opponent who plays chess, you can predict what he can do. You can know the flow of the nature of someone that has certain proclivities. If I back a person in a chess move, I used to be a chess champion back in high school and college. I don't play chess anymore. If you know a person, looking at them, you kind of determine their personality. If you back them to a certain position, you can really just about determine with high probability their next move. You can literally predict what they're going to do next. And that's extremely effective if you can algorithmically chart all that stuff out and predict quite far into the future. Did you know there's actually many arrays of supercomputers in which sociological algorithms are plugged in, along with personality algorithms to determine how a person, another state actor, say Putin or other people, will actually act. Did you know that? That's not like a conspiracy, that's actually a fact. So the universe is infinite, but we don't have to know all the infinite empirical facts of the universe. We only have to know the flow of things, how things fundamentally work. And that's all that's really important. Getting back to concentration as one last thing, I'll tell people, so what's the opposite of dilution, which is self-proximity, i.e. the total fruit of wisdom? And say, well, concentration. To continue the point I made from 10 minutes ago, and people say, well, I'm going to engage in concentration. And they'll sit there and they'll try to think their way out of a thinking box. And they're just digging the hole deeper around them. I'm going to dig the hole deeper around myself, and I'm going to dig my way out of this hole by digging more of the hole. You can't do it. Can't be done. Can't think your way out of a thinking box. They will accurately say what is necessitatively follows metaphysically. Well, the opposite of dilution, which is suffering, the complete opposite of self-proximity, complete opposite of wisdom, i.e., which of course would be ignorance, suffering, and all its resultant effects. Well, therefore, it's concentration. It's like, you're right, but you don't know what concentration means. You sit there, you can almost smell and hear the wood burning between their ears as they try to crush mind with mind, i.e., think their way out of a thinking box, and it can't be done. Not only can it not be done, it is not effectual to bringing about metaphysical concentration. See, there's objective concentration, like you focus a bunch of light on a point, you start burning stuff. Yeah, wonderful. Or concentrating your mind, i.e. empirical mentation, monokavinana, as it goes in ancient Pali. But you can't get your way out that way. You actually can't cause metaphysical concentration by projecting it and concentrating. You can't effectuate subjective concentration, i.e. Disobjectification, by engaging in objective concentration, because that's the only concentration people know. Objective. It's like, well, how would you effectuate subjective concentration? Which is, of course, self-proximity. And the only answer the ancients came up with, and it's hyperlogical, is via negativa, is THEURGY, is apophaticism, is neti. And this principle of same is extremely simple, but people don't get it. Anyway, the answer to the universe is not knowing, filling your head with bunches and bunches of facts. And I'm not against stupidity, I'm incredibly smart, but true wisdom is knowing that wisdom and empirical knowledge are not the same thing. One has its locus in the subject, and the other one has its locus in empirical existential consciousness, which goes no further than the psychophysical body. So this is the open secret of the universe that people don't get. And it is the biggest open secret of the universe. Anyway, tell me what you think. I read every comment. If you want to contact me, you can reach me via email in the description below. Lux e Veritas.